Hi, we're back with Women Who Encountered Jesus and our look at Mary, the mother of Jesus. And the last time we were looking at the, uh, the wise man and the flight into Egypt. And really, we don't know much about the growing up years. The Bible does not tell us much about Jesus as a child or as an infant, past the story of the wise men. And it just says that he grew, in wisdom and in stature. And we're gonna begin today with back in Luke 2, which of course Luke 2 verse 40, Luke says, "And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him." So that's a wonderful description of his childhood, basically. And the next time we really see Mary is when Jesus is about 12. And um, he, he, he goes to the temple and kind of gets separated from Mary and Joseph. So at this point, Mary and Joseph have traveled to Jerusalem. Jews at that time would have traveled at least once a year, sometimes 3 times a year, as the law demanded, for festivals such as Passover, Pentecost, the Feast of Tabernacles. And so when they went, they probably went with a large group because probably all the Jewish people in Mary's acquaintance, family, friends, neighbors, whatever, would have all been going. So it's very, very likely that it was a large group of people that went. So it starts in verse 41 of Luke 2. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Now, where they lived and where the temple was, probably about 80 miles, about maybe 3 days of travel with a big group like this. So they left and they were one day towards home. And then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. Now we might think, how could Mary not have known that Jesus wasn't there? I mean, come on. But you're talking about a large group of family and friends, and she probably thought he was with someone else. He was 12. It's not like he was real young, and 12 at that time would have been almost an adult. In modern Jewish times now, they have bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs at age 13. Back then, they did not have that, but that age was still an age where it was on that cusp between boyhood and manhood. Okay, so maybe another year or so, and he would have been considered of age. Okay, so and remember, girls the same way. They married at sometimes 13, 14, 15. They were considered adults at that time. So at 12, he would have been, Mary and Joseph would have thought, well, as long as he's with this group of relatives and friends, it's all good. So it isn't really that surprising that they would not have noticed him, would not have noticed that he wasn't there. I can remember one time we were at my house, and my whole family, a bunch of us, and we decided to go over to the nursing home. We were going to celebrate my dad's birthday when my dad was living in the nursing home. And we all got over there, and we got the cake all ready. There was probably, I don't know, 25 or 30 of us. And everybody looked around and they said, "Where's Allison?" That's my niece. Where is she? Nobody knew where she was. I hopped in the car and came home, and she was downstairs at my house working out on one of the machines in the basement. I thought it got kind of quiet, she says. So, and she probably was around that age too, maybe 10, 11, 12. You know, it's when you have a large group of family, and I have a large family, and you know what that, you know, if you're in a large family, you just know what that's like. Everybody kind of watches out for everybody's kids. So to say that there was somebody missing, it doesn't really register for quite a few minutes until you actually start counting heads and looking for your own kid. So anyway, um, they began looking for him among their relatives and friends, and when they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts. Now, 3 days, let's think. Probably one day they had been going that way, and one day they went back to Jerusalem, and then one day looking. You know, it had been 3 days since they had seen him for sure. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. Here was a 12-year-old that was like a prophet. I mean, you know, they were amazed at him. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. Now, it's interesting, this term astonished. I would think Mary must have been terrified until she got there, you know, to see actually him in the flesh. Oh, here he is finally, you know. She had to have been beside herself. Astonished, though. What? He's here in the temple? You know, I mean, it doesn't say they were, I don't know. I just think astonished is an odd name. I would think angry or relieved that they had seen him, you know, relieved that they had found him or something, but astonished. That's interesting to me. And Jesus kind of calls them on that in a sense, but listen to what Mary says. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, now Joseph isn't quoted here as saying anything, but Mary is. And again, there were no gospel writers here at this time to record this story, so we have to kind of guess that maybe Mary told Luke this story, right? Mary said to Jesus, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." It's like, young man, what were you thinking? Your father and I were searching high and low for you. You know, she's upset, you know, and she wants him to know that they had put her and she and Joseph through, that Jesus had put them through some anxious moments there, you know. Your father and I have been searching anxiously for you. Now listen to Jesus' answer. It's so telling. Why were you searching for me? He asked. Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? Some translations say, didn't you know that I had to be about my Father's business, you know, or the affairs of the Father? And here, when Mary says, at least in this translation, when Mary says, your father and I have been searching for you, father is lowercase f. When Jesus says, didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house, it's capital F. So Mary asks about his earthly father's anxiety and his earthly mother's anxiety. Didn't you know that we'd be looking for you? Your father was upset, you know? And Jesus takes the moment to remind her that his real father is God. This does not demean anything that Joseph's done for him or the relationship that he has with Joseph and Mary. But it's almost like he is reminding Mary of messianic promises that she should know, that she should have known, that when she got back to Jerusalem, she should have gone right to the temple because that's where he was going to be, you know. And notice what happens afterwards in verse 50. But they did not understand what he was saying to them. They didn't get it. Now, whether or not the way he phrased it was kind of an enigma to them, they didn't totally get his meaning, perhaps, or I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting, though, that Mary with all of the prophecies that God had given her to prepare her for Messiah. Now, it's been 12 years, but even so, those aren't things you forget. Big things like that, like the angel coming or the wise men getting there, Simeon holding the baby and prophesying, Anna giving a prophecy, Elizabeth, her cousin, her relative, giving a prophecy. You just don't forget that. And it did say, remember, that she pondered them in her heart. So she stored those away deep inside her. But with all that, she still didn't see really or understand what was happening. What's happening is Jesus is getting to be of an adult age, and he is starting to show the wisdom and the mission that he was sent here for. He's kind of getting ready. He's in the temple learning. He's in the temple talking. They're amazed at what he already knows and what he already is saying, the wisdom that comes out of his mouth. And he's reminding Mary that he's on the cusp of manhood, and he's going to step into that role, that mission for which he was sent. It's interesting also that I don't think we hear much about Joseph after this either. So we don't really know what happened to Joseph, because we're not really told. But it's interesting here that they did not understand what he was saying. So Mary didn't understand, Joseph didn't understand. Joseph's had some prophecy too. He's had a couple angels, dreams, all of that. But they're confused by this, totally. He was really breaking new ground in the relationship with his parents. He was kind of establishing, I'm almost a man, and as soon as I am, my mission is going to go about God's business, because God is my father, and that's why I was here. And Mary, it seems, needed a little reminder of this. And it's possible that later on, as the gospel writers were writing about him, maybe all of this really gelled for Mary, and she kind of got it. It made sense to her at that point. But this is kind of the dawning of Jesus' work as Messiah, his consciousness of Messiahhood, you might say. So he was saying, this is my real father, and don't forget, this is where I've got to be. But Mary did not really totally understand that. And so Jesus, knowing, of course, that he was still under their jurisdiction, being a 12-year-old, in 51 it says, then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. So he established this little segue into manhood, but he didn't totally step over. He said, okay, I'm still 12, I'm going home with you, I'll be obedient to you, I'll do everything you say, but, here was just a precursor of his mission, in a way, a little glimpse of what it was going to be like when he reached adulthood. And Mary, his mother, treasured all these things in her heart. So this is almost the exact same wording of what happened, after the birth announcement and all of the things with Elizabeth. And she treasured these things in her heart. These are more things she's sinking away as a mother and kind of putting down deep within her, things she'll never forget, and things that'll make sense to her later a lot more. So the last part of this is just Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Can you imagine Mary watching Jesus grow up? It must have been amazing. Like, first of all, he grew in wisdom, meaning he grew in intelligence and knowledge and using that knowledge the right ways and all of that. He grew in stature, meaning physically he grew, got bigger, got to reach adulthood, became a man, whatever. And then he grew in favor with God and man. So the grace of God was just upon him from the very beginning, and he grew close spiritually to God. And then, of course, that filtered out horizontally, to mankind, to other people. This love that he had and the favor that he had from God, he bestowed on other people. I cannot imagine what it must have been like as a mother to see that. It just must have been so dear. I mean, it's so awesome, to watch your kid. Because I mean, even when we have kids that make tons of mistakes and go here, there, and everywhere, we're still so involved as parents and so excited when they reach a milestone, graduation or a good grade on a test, or different things that we see the first time that as a man, the first time they shave, or the first time they drive a car, or the first time they go out on a date, just interesting things that a mom goes through. And those are the kind of things that we treasure. Here nowadays, of course, we take photographs, so many photographs of those kinds of precious moments, and that's what Mary kind of took a mental photograph of a lot of these things and treasured them deep in her heart. I think the next time we see Mary will be at the wedding of Canaan, and then we don't see much of her really until the tomb, or the crucifixion, and the resurrection. So I think next time that's where we'll go, is the wedding of Canaan, and we'll work our way through, and it won't be long, we'll be done with Mary. So if you have some other suggestions, please send them to me. I'm still thinking about where I'm going to go next or what I'm going to do next. If you have a particular interest, send me an email or text or something and let me know. Okay? Until then, blessings on all of you, and have a great day.